Imagine you are huddled around a crackling fire in a dark cave somewhere in the Paleolithic world. It's 50,000 BC. There are no screens, no notifications, and no looming deadlines. There is only you, the dancing flames, and the thick, pungent wood smoke curling directly into your eyes and nose. And at some point during that freezing night, one of your ancestors looked at that choking smoke and had a genuinely bizarre thought. What if I inhaled that on purpose? If you look at the modern world, smoking seems like a highly counterintuitive habit. We are taught that it started with colonial trade routes, European explorers, and the massive industrial factories of the 20th century. But the truth goes significantly deeper. The desire to intentionally draw burning smoke into our lungs is not a modern vice. It is an ancient behavioral drive that predates agriculture, pottery, and potentially even our own species. And the archaeological evidence for this is absolutely mind-blowing. How did we transform a hazardous forest fire byproduct into one of the oldest, most universal rituals in human history? And why did our brains evolve to be perfectly wired for it? To answer that, we have to start with the origin of fire itself. Before you can smoke anything, you have to master fire. And fire has been a part of the human story for an incredibly long time. At a site called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists discovered burnt plant ash and charred animal bones dating back roughly 1 million years. This wasn't the result of a random wildfire. It was a sustained, controlled hearth, kept alive inside the safety of a cave. Now, 1 million years ago, our species, Homo sapiens, didn't even exist yet. The creatures sitting around that South African fire were Homo erectus, our heavy-browed, smaller-brained ancestors. For hundreds of thousands of years, every single night, these early humans huddled close to campfires for warmth, safety, and cooking. This meant they were breathing in smoke every single day of their lives. It was basically the original air quality situation, and nobody had an app to monitor it. But campfires aren't just made of clean firewood. When you throw organic matter onto a fire, you aren't just releasing carbon dioxide and water vapor. You are unleashing a complex chemical cocktail depending on what plants you are burning. Many wild plants, when subjected to high heat, release volatile, psychoactive compounds, alkaloids, terpenes, and cannabinoids that interact directly with the human nervous system. This means that, entirely by accident, our ancestors were regularly getting high around the campfire, and they had absolutely no idea why they felt so relaxed. And our brains were already perfectly wired for this. The human brain contains a vast network of receptors specifically designed to bind with cannabinoids. These receptors didn't evolve because of the cannabis plant. They are part of our endocannabinoid system, which naturally regulates our mood, sleep, appetite, and memory. But because this system already existed, when an ancient human first inhaled the smoke of a burning wild cannabis plant, their brain wasn't confused. It locked on immediately. At some point, our ancestors made a massive cognitive leap. They connected cause and effect. They realized that burning specific weeds made them feel different, and they began seeking out those plants to throw onto the fire on purpose. The earliest direct evidence of this deliberate inhalation comes from a burial site in the Pamir Mountains of Central Asia, dating to around 500 BC. Archaeologists excavated wooden vessels called braziers, containing superheated stones. Chemically analyzing the residue on those stones, they found high concentrations of THC, the active compound in cannabis. This wasn't wild hemp used for making ropes. This was a highly potent strain of psychoactive cannabis burned deliberately during a funeral ritual. This archaeological find perfectly matches one of the most famous passages written by the ancient Greek historian Herodotus. Writing in the 5th century BC, Herodotus described a nomadic group of horse warriors on the Eurasian steppe called the Scythians. He wrote that they would build small, enclosed woolen tents, heat up heavy stones until they glowed, and throw hemp seeds onto them. The Scythians would sit inside the smoke-filled tent, inhaling the vapors, and, as Herodotus recorded, they would howl with pleasure. For centuries, modern historians assumed Herodotus was just exaggerating, but the Pamir excavation proved he was reporting exactly what he saw. While cannabis was the plant of choice in the East, an entirely different botanical revolution was happening in the Americas. Tobacco, a plant in the genus Nicotiana, is native to the American continents. When Christopher Columbus and his crew arrived in the Caribbean in 1492, they were completely baffled to see indigenous people walking around with glowing sticks of rolled leaves, inhaling the smoke through their noses and mouths. Naturally, within weeks, the Spanish sailors tried it themselves, because of course they did. But tobacco use in the Americas was already thousands of years old. In 2019, researchers digging in Utah's Great Salt Lake Desert made a stunning discovery. Inside a 12,000-year-old cooking hearth, they found the preserved, charred seeds of wild tobacco. These seeds weren't there by accident. They were concentrated in a way that proved deliberate, human placement. This pushed the timeline of human tobacco use back by thousands of years, long before the invention of pipes or pottery. But there is a massive difference between ancient smoking and modern smoking. To ancient Americans, tobacco was not a casual, everyday habit. It was a deeply sacred medicine. A shaman smoking tobacco wasn't taking a quick cigarette break. They were opening a portal to the spirit world. The rising smoke was viewed as a physical carrier, a messenger that transported prayers up to the heavens and brought visions back down to earth. Because tobacco was sacred, its use was highly disciplined, ritualized, and controlled. The idea of chain smoking while driving to work or waiting for a bus is an entirely European, post-industrial invention. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this journey into our hidden evolutionary history, take a split second to hit the subscribe button. It's a tiny action, but it helps a new channel like this grow. So why did virtually every human culture independently seek out ways to alter their consciousness through smoke? A renowned psychopharmacologist at UCLA named Ronald Siegel proposed a fascinating theory called the fourth drive. He argued that alongside our basic survival drives for hunger, thirst, and sex, there is a fourth biological drive embedded in animal behavior, the pursuit of intoxication. We see this everywhere in nature. Elephants will travel miles to eat fermented, alcoholic marula fruit. Reindeer in the Siberian tundra deliberately seek out hallucinogenic mushrooms, getting so high they can barely walk. If the drive to alter our consciousness is this deeply wired into animal biology, it makes complete sense that early humans used campfire smoke to satisfy it. And we didn't just use it for pleasure or spiritual portals. We used it as medicine. The Ebers Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical text dating to 1550 BC, outlines remedies that involve inhaling the smoke of burning herbs, specifically henbane, to treat asthma and lung congestion. In ancient India, the medical system of Ayurveda developed a practice called dhumapana, which literally translates to smoke drinking. It involved inhaling the smoke of specialized, therapeutic herbs through a pipe to clear the sinuses and soothe the mind. But beyond medicine and pleasure, ancient smoking served an even greater purpose. It was social infrastructure. Humans are deeply cooperative, social animals. But to keep a group of hunter-gatherers together without them killing each other, you need tools to build trust. Shared ritualistic consumption functioned as a primitive form of social technology. When a group of ancient humans sat together in a closed space, breathing in psychoactive smoke, they entered a shared, altered state of consciousness. Modern neuroscience has proven that these shared rituals synchronize neural activity, lowering cortisol and dramatically increasing group cohesion. The ritual smoke circle wasn't a party. It was the glue that kept human society together. The tragedy of the modern world is that we took this ancient, sacred, communal technology and handed it to industrial corporations. The gap between an ancient shaman placing sacred herbs on a superheated stone in 500 BC and a 20th century tobacco executive engineering cigarettes with chemical additives to maximize addiction is one of the largest moral chasms in human history. So, when did ancient humans start smoking? We will probably never have an exact date, because organic pipes and leaves rot. But the behavioral drive itself is as old as our relationship with fire. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans have sat around campfires, watched the smoke rise, and breathed it in. Next time you catch a whiff of wood smoke on a cold winter night, remember that you are participating in a ritual older than civilization itself. You are doing what your ancestors have always done. You are breathing. And speaking of biological survival, inhaling campfire smoke wasn't the only extreme hazard our ancestors had to figure out. They also had to navigate the single most dangerous, physically agonizing, and structurally impossible event in human anatomy, entirely without modern medicine, sanitizers, or a single hospital. To find out exactly how ancient women pulled off that miracle, click the video on your screen right now.